We're post-rut, end of November, Chad Ice-Noggles in southern Ohio. And Chad knows how to hunt big bucks, trust me. And he knows this time of the year, you gotta be looking in transition areas. The bulk of the rut's over. The bucks are still kind of hunting for them last few does, but they're also worried about getting them fat reserves put back on for the winter. So Chad's hunting a transition area between food and bed, but he's got his illusion calls in hand, and he's hoping he can call in a big mature buck.
Most of the leaves are off these trees, but there are some oaks right in my vicinity, and I think the does will want to browse through here. Majority of the deer come out of this bedding. It's a bunch of honeysuckle. I'm definitely going to do some blind calling, maybe entice something out of there looking for a doe. So.
So the first thing you see Chad do here is go through a short calling sequence, and what he's trying to do is create the illusion, he's trying to create the situation of a buck chasing a doe, and he does that real easy with the extinguisher. He first gives out a couple short buck grunts, very crisp, very short, very clean, and then he simply slides the monoslide up to the doe range, gives out a couple doe bleats, and then right back down to those short buck grunts again. We've got a buck chasing a doe. As soon as Chad's done with his calling sequence, he gets an immediate response from this 1.5-year-old buck that comes in. Obviously not a buck that Chad wants to shoot, but a great live decoy in front of him that if another bigger mature buck is coming in and sees it and verifies for him what he heard is actually what's happening. You don't, in this scenario, ever want to spook this live decoy, because you've got a lot going on for you right here. Again, you're trying to call in a larger buck, so you've really got to be careful in situations like this, that your scent control is point on, that your wind is right, that your movements are to a minimum. This deer right here is probably more important than the buck you're trying to kill, because when he comes in and sees the scenario that's happened here, he's probably going to commit. So you've got to pay special attention to make sure you don't spook any live decoys that you get in and around you.
I just grunted that little buck in with the extinguisher right to the base of the tree. If it would have been a shooter, it would have been a slam dunk. Still got plenty of daylight. Hopefully more deer will come out of that thicket.
So Chad does an interview here to let everybody know what's going on. You can actually hear the smaller buck down below him walking around. And while he's doing this, he looks out, sees a second buck approaching now from his calling sequence. This one's a year older. 2.5 comes in, and you can see the importance of the live decoy and why it was so important for him not to spook that 1.5-year-old. That 2-year-old comes right in, they interact with each other, and now the calling scenario has even gotten better, because now we've got 2 bucks in there that are kind of posturing around each other.
That was a cool encounter. Shortly after I called that 1.5-year-old buck, a little bit better, but still not a shooter buck, came in. They're definitely cruising, they're definitely interested. And what that sound was, the extinguisher, I'm sure brought both of those deer in. Although that buck's a little bit bigger, he's still not quite what I'm looking for. He's making a rub now.
So what happens next is really a lesson in knowing how to read a deer's body language. The 2-year-old at this point is thinking, you know, he's kind of king of the woods in this scenario. He's going to go over, show his dominance. He starts rubbing on a tree. And it's not long after he starts making this rub that you see him kind of snap up. And if you watch closely, his demeanor just changes immediately. Now, it's easy to think when you see this happening that this buck almost reacts like he's smelling Chad, he's seeing Chad. Watch his ears. He immediately goes from a position of dominance to a position of alert. And as he raises his nose and starts scent checking, he's not smelling Chad, but he's detecting the mature buck that's coming in. Chad sees him, pans the camera over. This is the buck we're looking for. And this is where everything we've talked about to this point really needs to come together. If I'm this buck standing there now, what do I see in front of me? First of all, I've come into a calling sequence. Everything that I've envisioned coming in, that I've come in to check and see if it's really happening, is solidified. I have no doubt in my mind, and that's why I'm acting the way I am at this point, as to what's happening is really, truly happening. So you watch this buck now as he starts to circle, and he's trying to cut downwind. What he's trying to do at this point is you can tell by his reaction when he first comes in and he starts rub urinating and he creates a scrape and he's showing dominance. He obviously has cut the smell of one of the bucks. The doe's not visible. Remember, the doe's not even there. But in his mind, the doe is real because the whole scenario that Chad created with the culling sequence is verified when he's come over the top of this ridge. If you've never been in this scenario, self-filming, you can't even imagine what's going on in Chad's mind right now. He's got to get this buck in a position where he has it on film good. He's got to get it in a position where he can shoot it, and he's got to get it stopped. Well, remember, there's 2 other bucks around. I mean, there's a lot going on here. It's a very fluid thing happening right now, and Chad knows he doesn't have a lot of time and he's not going to have a lot of chances here. So you can see, I mean, he's moving the camera ahead. He's looking for openings of where this buck is going, where he can get the camera, where he can get the deer, all in the same place at the same time, framed correctly, get the animal stopped, and then, by the way, he's got to get his bow drawn without getting seen by 6 eyes and get a good shot on this buck. Well, you can see it coming together. It's all come down to one moment here. Chad's got his opening. He's got the camera there. He's got the buck there. Now he's got to make the shot.
Meh. Man, that was intense. I was watching that 2-year-old, and this better buck, this 10-pointer came in. I went ahead and made the decision to try to get him, and I know the footage is kind of shaky, but I'm self-filming tonight. With any luck, we'll recover that buck, and I can show him off to you.
A neat buck. He's definitely lost some pounds during the course here, the last couple weeks chasing. I think I may have had an encounter with this deer, not far from where I shot him, but I never got a real good look at him. I had been blind calling and then rattling with the black rack, and I had a deer that was in a bedding area come up panting. Looked like he had just been running off another buck that I had called in minutes earlier. And I could tell that he had some mass on one side, but I couldn't even get him on camera. And it might have been this deer, but super pumped up to recover this warrior.
So a few keys that really made this hunt happen for Chad. Obviously, he's set up in the right area. He knows this time of the year what these bucks should be doing, so he's in a transition area between food and bed. You have to put yourself in the right area, in the right stand, based on the conditions and the time of the year. Chad does that, number one. He's obviously paid very special attention to his scent control. You cannot get busted. This is one of those dead calm days where scent is not, it's not blowing in any one direction, all right? It is pooling, it is settling. You've got to be extra careful, especially when you're trying to hunt a mature buck. Chad's obviously done that. The other thing here that's really ties it all together is his calling sequence. He creates a scenario with the buck, then the doe, then back to the buck. Again, this time of the year, we're post-rut. A mature buck is going to be out there looking for those last does. And by creating the scenario of not only a doe that's still in heat, but is being pursued, being bumped, being chased by a buck, that's going to entice that buck in, which is exactly what it does. And then finally, Chad stays cool under pressure. And that's really, as any hunter, whether you're filming or not, you've got to be able to pull it all together at the moment of truth. And this is a pretty tough scenario here. There's a lot going on. Chad keeps it together, makes a great shot, and is rewarded with a phenomenal buck.
Want to experience the same results you just witnessed? Use what the Deer Society experts use. The Extinguisher Deer Call and Black Rack Rattling System are the highest rated deer communication systems of all time, and less than 1% of deer hunters will have the opportunity to buy one this season. Get yours today at thedeersociety.com. Order now.